once jurisdiction is gained, it still can be retrieved because, you know, you've got to go to the police station, then they're going to make you believe that you've done something wrong, then they're going to get you to sign something, the sergeant's going to figure out whether he wants to charge you or not. So this is the first point of call where you can lose jurisdiction. Now, the ID card revolves around this point, but I'll get back to it a bit later on, because if you don't hand over jurisdiction from here, then you don't go to the police station, you don't get charged, you don't go to court. That's the basis of it, right? But the ideology is, the mindset is that that's the most important thing that you need to understand.
We're not talking about a criminal.
No. Criminals, I'll help the police catch them. Yeah? I'm talking about offences. Yeah. Peace officers, by the way, not police. Okay. Now, action. The judge orders, come and stand here. How many of us has been to court or magistrate's court, and then they come forward a little bit, or just point you in a direction to come? Then, by you following their orders, you become subordinate to them. So therefore, you've handed over jurisdiction by your actions. Okay. You might have seen a lot of these freeman videos online where, I know I'm not going to cross the bar because if all of my unalienable rights going to be attacked if I cross the bar, and all this sort of malarkey that you hear, right? So it's based around the judge trying to gain jurisdiction over you. I mean, he'll try and get jurisdiction over you orally, in action, and with the written word. Yeah? So by asking your name and your date of birth, you're handing over jurisdiction as well, because in court, you're identifying yourself as a fiction. If you turn up with the identity of the birth certificate plainly states that it's not to be used as identification. It's got a creation date of the fictional entity, which is your straw man, your scuba suit. So they're going to ask you for your date of birth. Well, in court, hearsay is not admissible. You have to have eyewitness testimony to verify verifiable truth. Someone standing there saying, I saw this, I witnessed this. So the fact that you are answering and claiming to know what date you were born is slightly insane, to be fair, because that's second-hand knowledge. You've got no first-hand knowledge of that you were being born. Okay. So the fact that you answered that question puts you into the realm of being incompetent. And when you're incompetent, which is a form of insanity with the court, the judge takes care of you and gives you benefits like fines and jail and tags and things like this. So, and if you seek legal representation or legal advice, then you're being represented. So while you're being represented, you can't represent yourself anyway, and the person who's representing you is not liable for what he says. What he says, you're liable for, because you've given him power of attorney. And one of the things that the solicitors and the legalese system does is they're all members of the Bar Association. The Bar Association, which is the judges and barristers, solicitors, they all operate under a code of conduct, and their loyalty is to that code of conduct. If you hire a solicitor or an attorney or a barrister, on his list of priorities you come about fifth down the scale, because their whole job is to cause controversy. They're interested in prolonging controversy. So if you have an issue with someone, under common law, you'd say, well, this is what you've done to me on such and such a day. And then the other person honourably would say, okay, well, if this is what I've done, how can I make amends? And you'd sort it out between yourselves privately. The fact that you're in court is now in the public. So you haven't managed to resolve whatever the situation is, so the judge is going to resolve it for you. If you turn up as a straw man, as a fiction, then the judge has jurisdiction over you, and he'll treat or operate in any way he sees fit, because fictional entities don't have any rights. A corporation can't have rights. It doesn't exist. It's a fiction. So you can say, what about my rights to this? What about my rights to that? If you're standing there in front of that authority as a fictional entity, you don't have any rights. They're not going to tell you that, though. They'll just treat you that way. It'll seem as if you're not getting anywhere, no one's listening to you, because they're not. You're not important. Now, remember the scuba suit? The scuba suit is for operating on the Sea of Commerce. And this Sea of Commerce has come inland to about 3 foot fictionally, which is why when you walk into the court, the judge is up on a pedestal, everyone's up on a little barrier. Even when you go into the dock, you have to step up into the dock because you're stepping out of the fictional water, because they've taken maritime law and they've brought it, the law of commerce, they've brought it on land and they've overlaid it over the top of common law. So we've been indoctrinated to believe that statutes and legislation is the law, but statutes and legislation only affect the people which are public servants. We as the people have put people in positions of trust. I'm not even going to say authority, because we're always the authority. We put people in positions of trust, and over the years they've reneged on that trust. They've been deceitful. I'm not going to go into a slightly more advanced topic, but when you start to understand the species of money, they're robbing us blind as well. Okay, so by making you believe that the law of the land is legalese and what's written and coming down through the Houses of Parliament are only rules and regulations to keep them in check, it's got nothing to do with you. Obviously, if I use an analogy to say we're all on a ship, there's all the people in this room are on a ship, and then we get shipwrecked onto an island, and there's no one around for thousands of miles. We have to build a sustainable society where we all can benefit from each other's skills. Okay, so over a period of time, we discover that there's water there, and there's bananas and fruit, and we've got gas and coal and all these different resources. So as the generations are being born, we're building all this infrastructure. So we get to a stage where someone needs to manage this infrastructure now, because some people are talented at nursing, some people are engineers, it's just a natural progression of things. Okay? So because we've got all the resources and we build everything, if it's easy to go from A to B and we decide to build a road, then that's what we do. No one owns the road, because all the aggregate, all the material, even us, have come from the earth. We get it for free. Okay? So it's our effort that just remolds that molecular structure into something else which is beneficial for us to use. Okay? So over this period of time now, we've got water running to the house, we've got gas, we've got blah 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 blah. Now, these people that we've put in a position of trust, they say, okay, there's so many generations have died now, so they can't really remember how all this began. So we're going to privatise the water. Yeah? So that water that was coming free to your house now, you don't know that your foreparents built all the infrastructure anyway. They've just sold all that, which is already prepaid by you, to another company, and the company has shareholders, because the company can't spend money, and the shareholders are sitting there raking in all the dividends, charging you for something which you already own. Okay? So then we wrote rules and regulations that kept them in check, so they couldn't do fraud, and if they misused their position in office or whatever, they were out. So over a period of time that they indoctrinated us, so we could no longer think logically or with any common sense. Because if you thought about these things, it's just it's pretty straightforward. But the fact that you're mungling through this cloud of gunk that you've been taught, you don't even see the wood for the trees. Okay? So you've got these corporations that are paying for the people in trust and putting them there, and then the people in trust are paying back the corporations, and the corporations, they're subservient to the corporations. So instead of being subservient to the people, they're subservient to the corporation. Now I don't need to say any more than that because you already know that's true. You can just open your eyes and see it, okay? So, the reason why I'm standing here and the reason why you're in this room and not in that one is because you realise that something's going on and you want to try and do something about it. Now, what's really happening is, every time you see this guy, he does not know what I've just said. It's not totally his fault. But when you see this guy, he does, 100%. Now, whenever you see either of them, you've got no need for a scuba suit because you're not in the water. You know, you're going about here every day, walk in the park or whatever you're doing, you're shopping, and then one of them spots you because you've, you know, caused some perceived convention or something. Okay, so the man in the road and the policeman will always assume you are wearing your scuba suit. This is one that we put together for the land, okay? Because you're not obviously not in the water, but when you're standing in the dark, that's what you look like to the judge and to the policeman. So how did I gain jurisdiction? Written word, right? Any correspondence from these jokers, they're going to be using legalese. It doesn't matter what it is, right? So your utility company, water, your gas, these are the main culprits here. These people are quite proficient. So the three main culprits are going to be the court, the police station, and the Inland Revenue. When you start to mess around with these people because you don't know who you are, you're going to end up here. And when you don't go there, you're going to end up in here, and then you're going to go there. So the electric company, mobile phones, when we're paying for these things which are actually poisoning us and killing us off anyway, so we need to understand and have a good control of who we are so we can start mitigating the damage. It's not about having lots of money in your pocket, because like I explained a bit later on, your straw man is an operating utility, but the government is there using the wealth of the country to the benefit of the people, supposedly, but the people are on the private, and the public is the government operation in commerce. Now, there is public funds and there are private funds. The private funds you're not too familiar with. The people who have been in the law movement for a bit longer understand exactly what escrow accounts are, and roughly what happened with the bankruptcy and the introduction of fictional currencies and things like this. But I don't really want to go into that because the main point that I'm going to focus on is not giving over jurisdiction. Because if you don't give over jurisdiction, none of the rest will happen. Okay? So, the gaining jurisdiction through this word here, the most, I would say. And that word looks quite simple because, you know, how are you doing? We use it in the vernacular. Common parlance or colloquially speaking, we understand that's a reference to a person or people. Yeah? Now, in this country, there are three forms of English. One is slang, street slang, colloquial English that we all use, common speak, and legalese. In legalese, what you think is English, it obviously is not. And these words don't mean what you think they mean when they're addressing you through the utility company, through HMRC, in the court, and even the police are taught to speak legalese even though they don't know that they're doing it. If you notice, when you speak to a police officer, whether you've never met him before, you already know what sort of common parlance to them they're going to speak in, because it's all very matter of fact. I observed the witness and blah. It's not natural talking. Now, all of them talk like that for a reason, because they've been trained to do it, but they don't realise why they're doing it. Now, you is a second person. So we've been through what a person means, and a person is a fictional entity. Yeah? But you refers to the duality inherent within and of the party that is liable for the essential plural nature of the single person, corporate entity, or who at least is prepared to volunteer to accept responsibility and or liability thereto. Now, how many letters have you received where they've addressed the letter to what you believe is you, but it's your scuba suit, and then the scuba suit name and address is in a box? That's not on the paper in legalese, by the way, it's not part of the document. And then they will never ever refer to your name again. It'll always be, you must pay, your council tax, blah blah blah, you. That's all you're going to read in their documents. Once you start to see what this word means, it loses its power, and then you lose the fear of it, because you know that that is not talking about you. Who is you? Because the Creator, I am, made man. Now, if you looked at a biblical reference which said Moses is coming down from the mountain with the 2 tablets of the 10 Commandments carved in them, and he's going to go down into the Jews or the Israelites or whatever it is, going back home, he's saying, who shall I say carved them? I am what I am. Now, ecclesiastically, whether you are religious or not, this system is being run from the church through the Bible. They print 60 million copies a year. You better start reading it, because they're using the Old Testament every time you go into court. Okay? So you've got no excuses, and they put it right under your nose. You know, I'm not religious, I am the Bible. The Bible's a law book. Okay? It's nothing to do with religion at all. Well, it is, but it just depends on how you read it. It's on many, many levels. But the level that they're dealing with is law, because law comes from the Bible. Or did you know that the law came from the Bible, by the way? Yeah? Okay. So they're using that book, and obviously, if you are going to swear under oath or affirmation, preferably it's with the Bible. One of the strangest things would be then is, if in the Bible it says a man cannot judge another man, what's actually happening in the court? So the courts, most courts that we are going to be in for offences are magistrates' courts. They're administration tribunals. Okay, so if you listen to the word tribunal, administration, they're all working terms. If you work for a company or whatever, those would be internal disciplinary procedures. Okay.
You have 2 minutes, just kind of a bit break or something.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
No, just let someone else.
Should we all having a break, or we're just carrying on?
There's only 2 toilets, so we'd have to stagger it.
Just
Okay.
carry, just roll on.
Okay.
Everyone's free to go as and when.
Yeah. So they're getting joinder through the you. So if you go to court now and they say, you know, there's the 3-man thing where they go, are you under your oath, judge? Or the judge might say, are you such and such? And you go, no, I'm here on that matter, or you know, you figure out something to say which will deflect you from the name, because you believe that's how they're gaining jurisdiction. Well, the fact that you're even answering to you has already created the joinder. Okay? So whether you admit to being a name or not, when the judge asks if you are such and such, then the joinder's already been created. Okay? So one of the ways to remember this is to paint in your mind it's spelled like this. Okay? So every time you see it in a document, that's not you, alright? Every time you see you, just think of a sheep, alright? And I'm going to some words now because they're gaining jurisdiction through the documents that you send into the court as well. Now, I don't know how many people have ongoing court cases and they're putting documents into the court. Well, you can hand over jurisdiction by using legalese because you give that's a private language which you have to have a license for to practice. One of the reasons why I don't come on here and give a disclaimer is because I'm a man and I can communicate in any way I please. Now if there's someone who wants to claim difference, then speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay? That's my opinion. Right, so pleadings, petitions, these are words that might not straight come to mind straight away as begging, but that's exactly what they are. But they're disguised in documents because a pleading is begging to a higher deity, and the petition is, I mean, I'm sure you've been to the church at one stage where it said petition the Lord in prayer. Well, when these people are telling you to make a petition, they're saying that they're your deity. Okay? Requests. Requests and complaints. I heard Joy mention complaints earlier on, and men in the true status don't make complaints. Complaints are a whining and a moaning. And when you go whining and moaning, then the judge is just going to sort all the whining and the moaning out because you're little children and you can't get on. But we're here to, make you behave. Okay? You're not coming from a position of authority by an act of asking. Okay? We're not acting as king. We are the king. You are in charge of your own destiny. No one's got the right to tell you how to live your life. So just because a set of people in Parliament, 600 MPs say for instance, sit down and have a bottle of scotch at 2 o'clock in the morning and start writing out some rubbish they expect you to live your life by, then if all of us in this room did a poll and said, this is what we're going to do, if there's 30 people in this room, we wouldn't all agree. So even if the 650 people in Parliament agreed, which they don't, what does that have to do with 60 million of us? Okay? This is what we do. We require. Require means with rights and authority. And that's what sovereign means, by the way. You don't need to call yourself a sovereign. Just call yourself a man with what you are, or a woman, because as a man or woman, these are all the rights that come with it. You don't need to announce it. Okay? You don't need to put I'm smart on the Colin Michael of the Stanley family. I reserve my unalienable rights in the spirit of the soul and all these things. Okay? You don't need it. If you're writing to the court to deflect anything, then I, a man, or I, a woman, and then you start your whatever you need to say. You don't use legalese words, and the words that you do use are coming from sovereignty. Okay? Because your document is done before you, and they can see that there's a man or a woman writing that document by the words that you use, how you punctuate your documents, but we'll go on to that at a different discussion. Okay? Shall and will. Does anyone know what type of words they are? Has anyone ever thought about it, what type of words they are? Go on then.
So, future tense.
Exactly.
Oh, because I wrote that.
Future tense words, meaning sometimes in the future, sometime in the future. Yeah. When they when they write legislation, there are people called grammars that write it. They have a very high Q, 180 plus. And they write this legislation in a way that doesn't tell you to do anything, because they can't, they're a fiction. You're higher than they are, but they can deceive you into believing that you should do something if you believe that that is you, and the straw man's you, and the scuba suit's you, okay? So, all drivers shall have a driver's license. All drivers will have a driver's license. What they're saying is all drivers will have a driver's license. But if anyone ever went to court and said, okay, bring the law into the court that they wrote the statute of, because no facts or laws are allowed in their courts anyway, whether you knew that or not, but bring the law into the court that they wrote that statute of. And even if they read the statute in court, all you've got to do to defend yourself is get the prosecutor or the judge to read the statute out. He says, I shall have a driver's license. Okay, I shall have a driver's license, okay. Are we done? You will have a driver's license, all right, yeah, fine. Well, they're saying one day in the future, the government is going to have control over man, and you're going to tell man what to do. Yeah, fine, yeah, whatever. So, you shall and you will. It's the future. But when you understand consciousness, there only is now. And when you go to court, you speak in now tense, not past tense or future tense. It's now. Okay? Someone who is standing, or if the prosecutor hands over a document and it's verified proof of something, would that be any good to you in the court? What do you think? Yes or no? Hands, yes. Okay, good. Verified proof could be a document that states you did this or such and such did this, and then there's a signature on it that they've verified that document. But in the present tense, that has to be verifiable proof. So someone has to look at that document and say, yep, that's my signature, this happened, blah, blah, on the oath or affirmation, because only a man can make a claim, okay? Verified paperwork, it's 2D, fiction, doesn't mean anything. Unless there's a man there to back it up, or a woman, it's rubbish, okay? Parlance is, I mean, we went through that earlier on, it's just the language used by a particular group of people. We use common parlance under common law. Now, under common law, if you've committed a crime or you've been charged with a crime, then you're going to end up in the jurisdiction of your peers, which means that there's going to be a jury. And it's called a jury because of the judge, not the guy sitting in the wig. He's just the referee. Okay? Now, the judge, you're judged by your peers. So that's another deception. You're thinking that he's a judge, right? He's only a judge if you believe that he's a judge. One of the things you can do in their administrative courts, because obviously it's a different scenario if you were actually charged with a crime, because that's under common law and there needs to be laws and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm against the fictional entities, okay, who claim that you contravened a road sign, because you can't contravene a road sign. A road sign can't stand in the dock and say, you hurt me or you did this to me. Okay? Even though you'll see on their fine schedules that there's a victim charge of X. Well, who's the victim? I don't know who the victim is. But it's just another remedy that Tony Blair brought in to gain more money out of you. All you are is a set of chattel that should be deceived to get more money out of all the time. So their real masters can do whatever they need to do, build these develop all this technology to, make you ill and make money off you through the pharma industry. We can go on about it, so I think we all know about that. And then may, used to express opportunity or permission. Now, remember this word, because I'll be playing a few short videos. What are we doing for time?
Time, perhaps we could possibly wind up at 1:45.
What time is it now?
It's 1:10.
Okay, I'll just try and speed up a little bit because
We don't know yet.
This is useful. Keep
Just
going.
keep, just keep them going.
Okay.
Keep them going until they prompt us and then wind up.
Okay, fair enough.
Probably all right till 3.
Yeah.
Resisting arrest is probably common one. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, resisting arrest is probably a common one because that's something that, whether you've done something or not, the police officer will always throw into the mix just because he didn't do what he said or whatever and he wants to get his arm back. Right? But that's what it actually means. So for you to stand up for your rights would mean that you're resisting arrest in legalese terms. None of some sit. A lot of people choose to qualify their signatures with I reserve all rights, unalienable this, unalienable that. Right? Now, NA, if you put NA before your signature, that bit of knowledge can save possibly a lot of tension because if you're not complying with what the officer wants at the time, just write NA, you know, this officer has the children, you know what I mean? Scribble your name down, but put NA before it, which means none of some sit. It doesn't stand for not applicable. Okay? They know what it means when it hits the court anyway. There you go. No agreement or obligation to contract, simple, NA. Right? So, I mean, a lot of the time as well, it's the time that you take to do things. If you're at the side of the road or in a particular situation and you have to sign one of their documents so you can go on your way, then just sign it. If you've got the knowledge to sign it where you're not liable for it, just sign it. Let him believe whatever he wants to believe and go on your way. Because the most important thing in this world is time. Okay? Denied. You might think that someone denying you something means that you can't have it, right? But it just means not true. So when the judge is telling you that you're overruled or you're denied or is telling you what you've just said isn't true, it's calling you a liar. But you don't know this, obviously. Habeas corpus is quite a powerful tool if you understand what the meaning of it is, and it just simply means that the plaintiff must appear. Most of the time they've got you as a defendant. Well, the defendant doesn't need to appear, but the plaintiff does. The reason why the defendant doesn't need to appear because the defendant can be represented by a solicitor or a barrister or whatever the case may be. But the person who's making the claim has to be in court. Okay. Now this is very important because when you understand what's happening in their fictional administration meetings, there is no claimant. The government cannot stand in the dock and say you did anything. The road sign can't stand there. The statutes can't stand there. And even if the statute was there, I'd say, did you write the statute? Do you know what the words mean in that statute? Bring the guy who wrote the statute here. And even if you brought him here, he would have to tell me what that statute had to do with me. Do you understand where I'm going with this? It's very, very simple. All right. Who is making the claim against you? Only a man can make a claim, and fictitious entities make complaints. Yeah? The fact that you're making a complaint, you're in the wrong side of the court. Okay. And the court, by the way, is whatever status is surrounding you. If you imagine one of those beam me up Scotty things and you've got this ring of light around you, that's your status as a man. Now, in your interaction with any authority, they want you to step outside of that circle into their jurisdiction, and then they've got control over you. As long as you stay within your ring of light, then even when you walk into their so-called perceived authority, which could be the magistrate's court, you are moving court, whether you realise it or not. And when you do realise it, it's a very powerful thing to do, because they're always going to try and move you from your jurisdiction, and you stay in the jurisdiction of a man. Now, one of the things I thought about the other day, and I heard this, I think it was from Joe, one of the people that they're doing a bit of uncommon law with on the other side of the pond in America. When the judge is saying overrule to your objections, one of the cases that I had, some warrant officers came to the family home trying to execute a warrant. They came in there with the big dirty boots on. That's my family home, my parents' home, and we don't have shoes on in the house, well, she doesn't anyway. So regardless of who they are, who they think they are, they're breaking a lot of rules within our jurisdiction, outside their jurisdiction. Yeah. So that went on, and it ended up in the court. And in retrospect now, because I was at the beginning of this, sort of making this information a bit more concise. This was about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. When I went into the court, I thought I knew how they were trying to gain jurisdiction over me. And one of the simplest things that I could have done is find out who was presiding in that court, find out the names of them, walk into the court, and when I'm being addressed, or I'm addressing the court, or the judge, so to speak, it would be greetings George, or greetings John, because he thinks that he's a judge, I see him as a man. Now, I haven't given him any authority over me, and he has to produce evidence where I've signed a piece of paper saying, I'm going to be subservient to you, and I'm giving you authority to make all these determinations over my life. Okay? So, just being placed in a certain particular mentality and knowing that this Mr. Ben character, who today is a judge, tomorrow is a milkman, whatever the case may be, it's just a fictional role that he's playing at that particular moment in time. And the power or strength that he has in that particular role is only gained from what I believe. If I don't believe if a milkman in a milkman costume came to you and said, I'm going to sentence you to 25 years in jail for blah, 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 or you got to pay this fine, you wouldn't pay much mind. So it's all the state of mind. Okay?
Well, what happens in the court if they say, well, you will call me Judge X, Y, Z, whatever, isn't it? So basically forcing them to basically...
How can someone force you to call them anything?
No, I'm not sure. I haven't got to that level. But I don't know if you just call the bloke John Smith rather than Judge John.
But unless you've given him any authority over you, and I don't know why you would, if he believes that he's a judge, which you know that he isn't, in Halsbury's law, I think it's as recent as 2011, it clearly states in there, because of the oath that the Queen took to govern the people according to their customs, you cannot legislate a tribunal court lawful. It can't be lawful. They can't even write legislation to make it lawful. So it's not court, and they're not judges. Now, you can turn this around to them, because a magistrate has a certain ability to oversee whether there's any merit in a claim or a case, and then you can take it to the next level, which would be the Crown Court jurisdiction. So when you move the court, you're requesting that magistrate to operate in a certain way. You require that magistrate. See, no one corrected me there. You require that magistrate to operate in a certain way. And so, what did I do there? I just go back. Okay. So, this, now we've been through legislation or whatever, I came across that little clip. So I'll play it you anyway, and then we'll move on to the next thing if we've got time. We want to have a little break, I don't know. Have a little break after this one?
No,
just carry on? Okay. Right, so it's not as serious as you think, guys. There's nothing to fear, so we can start having a bit of fun with it now. Now we know what they're actually doing, okay? And the more knowledge that you get on board, the funnier it'll become, right?
Difference anyway, whatever it is, I'm against it. No matter what it is or who commenced it, I'm against it. Your proposition may be good, but let's have one thing understood, whatever it is, I'm against it. And even when you changed it or condensed it, I'm against it. I'm opposed to it. On general principles, I'm opposed to it. before my son was born, I used to yell from night till morn, whatever it is, I'm against it. And I've kept yelling since I first commenced it. I'm against it.
All right. Are we against it? Are we for it? Politics. Politics is what drives all of this, because the legislation has been reinforced by the politics. The people who are in those positions are continually writing more and more legislation to take more and more money from you. Yeah. Sorry. I felt free then without that mic. Now I feel like, yeah. So yeah. So I don't know how many people are familiar with Ayn Rand, but I've picked a little, I think it's 5 or 6 minute clip from an interview that she did in 1959, and she says a lot of things that we're finding to be very relevant right now. Okay, so if you bear with me for 5 or 6 minutes and just have a little listen to Aaron. All right? Politics means exactly what it says as well.
Let's move ahead. Let's move ahead. How does your philosophy translate itself into the world of politics? Now, one of the principal achievements of this country in the past 20 years particularly, I think most people agree, is the gradual growth of social protective legislation based on the principle that we are our brother's keepers. How do you feel about the political trends of the United States, the Western world?
The way everybody feels, except more consciously. I feel that it's terrible, that you see destruction all around you, and that you are moving toward disaster until and unless all those welfare state conceptions have been reversed and rejected. It is precisely these trends which are bringing the world to disaster, because we are now moving towards complete collectivism or socialism, a system under which everybody is enslaved to everybody. And we are moving that way only because of our altruist morality.
Yes, but you say everybody is enslaved to everybody, yet this came about democratically, free people in a free country voted for this kind of government, wanted this kind of legislation. Do you object to the democratic process?
I object to the idea that people have the right to vote on everything. The traditional American system was a system based on the idea that majority will prevail only in public or political affairs, and that it was limited by inalienable individual rights. Therefore, I do not believe that the majority can vote a man's life or property or freedom away from him. And therefore, I do not believe that if a majority votes on any issue, that this makes the issue right. It doesn't.
All right, then how do we arrive at action? How should we arrive at action?
By voluntary consent, voluntary cooperation of free men, unforced.
And how do our leaders arrive, how do we arrive at our leadership? Who elects? Who appoints?
The whole people elects. There is nothing wrong with the democratic process in politics. We arrive at it the way we arrive by the American Constitution as it used to be. By the constitutional process